Welcome to a new episode of Hymn Stories. Today we have two of the great hymns for All Saints. This special time of year, All Saints' Day, falls on November 1st and is generally observed on the Sunday nearest. Our first hymn is perhaps the classic hymn for All Saints, hymn number 287 in our hymnal, For All the Saints. There's no question that this tune, written by the English composer Vaughan Williams for use with this text, stands as one of the outstanding hymn tunes of the 20th century. It was first included by Vaughan Williams in the English hymnal, which he edited. The tune name, Sine Nomine, means without name, and it may be a reference to the many saints whose names are known only to God. Bishop William Walsham Howe's great All Saints text, For All the Saints, first appeared in a book called Hymns for Saints' Days and Other Hymns by a Layman, published in London in 1864, the last full year of our Civil War in this country it would have been. Now, the layman in question in this book was the second Earl Nelson, who wrote a number of the hymns. But Bishop Howe was a great hymn writer, and he wrote the text for all the saints. He originally began this hymn calling it For All Thy Saints, and he made the change to the saints soon after the hymn was first published. Two other changes that he requested have not been used over the years. In the second stanza, he wanted it to read, Thou in the darkness, still their one true light. And as you may remember, we sing, Thou in the darkness, drear, their one true light. And in the sixth stanza, he wanted, Bishop Howe did, soon to faithful warriors comes their rest. Whereas we sing, soon to faithful warriors cometh rest. Small changes, but to me very interesting when dealing with a poet and what he really wanted in his poem. There were three original stanzas in the middle, fourth, fifth, and sixth verses, about apostles, evangelists, and martyrs that have generally been omitted over the years. And these three stanzas were included as a separate hymn when this text first appeared in an Episcopal hymnal back in 1871. Music-wise, as I mentioned, Vaughan Williams wrote this tune especially for these words. It stands as one of the great hymns of the 20th century and of any century, really. And interestingly, it contains two melodic fragments that are really distinctive thumbprints of its composer. The first fragment is the first four notes, Ti-da-da-dam, and the second is the first Alleluia, Ta-da-da-da-dam. If you listen to Vaughan Williams' symphonies and any cross-section of his music, you'll hear those little motifs time and time again. They really are true musical thumbprints of his. So that by way of insight, and today we have the special treat of a vocal quartet from the Trinity Cathedral Choir to sing this great hymn as we recorded it for All Saints Sunday, omitting the fifth and sixth stanzas in our hymnal. So you'll hear verses 1 through 4, and then 7 and 8. Our second hymn today is hymn 232, By All Your Saints Still Striving. This hymn fills a very practical need for hymnody for saints' days that frequently occur midweek, just once per year, of course, and therefore need to be paired with very accessible, easy-to-remember tunes. Horatio Nelson published a book called Hymns for Saints' Days and Other Hymns in London in 1864, again, the same year as our previous hymn for all the saints. So London in 1864 had a banner year for all saints texts, it seems. And it was in this volume that Nelson's best-known text, For All Thy Saints in Warfare, For All Thy Saints at Rest, first appeared. This text had been modified just a little bit, but it's the genesis of the hymn that we're talking about. Its purpose was to provide a general initial stanza and then a doxicological concluding stanza to frame a middle verse that was flexible, and you could choose the verse appropriate to the person or persons being commemorated on a specific date or occasion. So this is practical hymnody of a very, obvious sense. There's a big choice of middle verses for different occasions, and you can choose the one for the day being observed. So following publication of the text, additional middle verses were provided by friends of Horatio Nelson. And the text first appeared in an Episcopal hymnal in this country in 1871, continued in the 1892 and 1916 hymnal editions, but was discarded in the famous hymnal 1940. So it was in that same friendly spirit of cooperation, similar to Nelson and his friends, that the text was prepared for printing in our present hymnal 1982. The first and third Nelson verses appear as they did back in 1871, with new inner verses, which were recently commissioned for our present hymnal by F. Bland Tucker and the Reverend Jerry Godwin. The tune in question here is a Finnish melody of rather uncertain origin. Its earliest known publication was in the Finnish Evangelical Lutheran Church Chorale book. That's a mouthful. Published in Helsinki in 1909. And the tune entered English-speaking hymnals in the Revised Church Hymnary, which was published in 1927. One of the editors of that book named the tune Nyland, Nyland, after one of the Finnish provinces, although the tune apparently had nothing to do with that part of Finland. It was sort of an arbitrary choice because it was a fairly simple word, and it has stuck. The tune entered the Episcopal hymnal in the hymnal 1940, and a quartet from the Cathedral Choir will now sing this hymn with the middle stanza for All Saints' Day, which falls on November 1st. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Hymn Stories. It's been a special pleasure to have as many as 4 singers from the Cathedral Choir back together again. This is really the first time that we've had that in nearly 8 months. So it was very special for us to record these hymns, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Have a great month of November, time that promises to be a very interesting one for our country and for all of us. Stay safe, and we look forward to being together on the next episode of Hymn Stories.